Hello everyone, it's editing me here, and I'd just like to say that I had this video done a certain way, but I'm changing it up and doing it this way, and I'm going to be opening these and showing these off while the audio is playing in the background and stuff, and with some images popping up. Oh, another thing too I like to mention is that in the video I say dread. I don't really mean dread. I mean to say like thrill, suspense, like it's like when you watch a show that you can't wait to watch the next episode to see what happens. That's what I kind of mean, like you're on edge of your seat kind of deal. You'll understand once you start watching the video.
If you're watching this video, it's safe to assume that you saw the title and the thumbnail. And yes, as the title and thumbnail suggest, I have been waiting for Digimon Survive and I'm super hyped for it. And to get myself prepared for it, I watched the first 5 series. And I thought it'd be a cool idea to list the series from my favorite to least favorite. And not necessary to review or summarize them, but just kind of give my thoughts and opinions of the series, and kind of rate them. But before we get into that, I like to give some context with me in the Digimon franchise, and what led me to watching the series, which led to me making this video. First and foremost, I would say that I've always been a huge fan of Digimon ever since I was a little kid. There was something about this series that really just, well, at least the animated series, that really stood out to me and kind of moved me in a way that Pokemon hasn't. Now, I love Pokemon, and I think the games are better than the Digimon games, but I think the Digimon animated series is better than the Pokemon animated series. There was something about being a Digidestined and chosen to save the digital world that I found very compelling, and even feeling emotional about. Like you are a child given a Digimon partner that can help you grow, and in return you can help it grow through the power of love and being yourself, and with the help of your friends. And there were things when I was watching the series that I remembered and recalled from my memory as a kid, which kind of shocked me because honestly I haven't followed Digimon in a while. It's been quite a few years actually, but watching the series has made me just as emotional now as it did when I was a child. It wasn't until I saw Digimon Survive, a trailer for it back in 2018, and I was very hyped for this game just because it seemed to be a much more mature game, and it seems to have made the series a little bit more darker, mature theme. Not to say that the series never had that to begin with, but this seems to be a much more darker twist onto the series, which caught my attention. Well, sadly the game got postponed, and even at one point I thought it got cancelled, but it brought back the spark of Digimon to me. And I was kind of craving a Digimon game to play. So then I found Digimon Cyber Sleuth. I'm not sure how you say that. So I go and I buy the game for the Switch that comes with the hacker's memory as well. And I'm about to put it in the console to play it, and I'm like, wait a minute, I need to really fresh up my memory on Digimon. And yeah, Digimon Survive has gone silent, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's been canceled. And if it isn't canceled, I kind of want to also refresh my memory for that too in case it comes out next year. And then that's when the thought occurred to me to watch the Digimon series. And the order that I watched them in goes Digimon Adventure 1, 2, Tamers, Frontier, Data Squad, and Fusion. For the record, I did watch the English dub in all of these series. Except for the first one, Digimon Adventure, I watched that in dub and in subbed, and then I watched the Fusion Hunters in sub for obvious reasons. So when looking at these, I'm looking at them how they are presented in the English dub, what I grew up with. Not the original Japanese sub, since those are a lot harder to come across. But since I did watch Adventure 1, I can compare the two in a small little rundown, I guess. Like I said in the beginning of the video, this will not be a huge summary of each series. This is just, well, you're just going to have to find out how I do it. Another thing I like to get out of the way too is that I love the Digimon series. Even when I do talk about some of these series things I didn't like about them, I still really love them a lot. Also, this is my opinion, so obviously it's going to be different than yours. But I would still nonetheless like to see what your list is in the comments below. Now, the ranking that I'm going to do with these series is it's going to be in 4 categories, which will be loved, amazing, very good, and good. Love, obviously I love the series. Amazing, I thought the series was amazing. Very good, it's a very good series still. And good, it was like, it wasn't bad, but I don't think it's as good as the other series. But nonetheless, it's still a good series that you should check out. Now you know how I'm going to rank them, and with all that out of the way, let's jump right in. Unless you skipped, of course. You know who you are, scumbag. Also, spoiler warning for all the series, so if you haven't seen them, I suggest you stop watching it, because I'm going to basically spoil all of them. Digimon Adventure 1. It starts off with the kids going to summer camp and they actually died in a car crash. Where they fell off the bus and they went into a ditch and they all got killed. And now they're in the afterlife trying to find the 7 Dragon Balls to battle the Shaman King and wish for the Yu-Gi-Moto to teach them how to play Beyblade, so they can become the ultimate muscle to beat Kirby in a pillow fight. Well, actually at summer camp they get transported to the digital world. There they meet their actual Digimon, and they have this Digivice that allows them to evolve to help them battle other Digimon so they can find their way back home. But as they're trying to find their way back home, they learn that they are the Digidestins. And the Digidestins are destined to save the digital world from the forces of evil, and these forces of evil are trying to stop the kids so that they can rule the digital world. And yes, that was a simple synopsis of the actual show, but I mean, it goes into much more details than that. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to give you the simple synopsis. And it's because of this synopsis is why I love this series a lot. I love the Adventure 1 series. I don't know, like even as a kid and even now as an adult, it always gave me like a sense of dread. And kind of like an RPG, and I like RPGs. Like for instance, you start off as like level 1, and then they're trying to survive by getting food, water, and shelter while people are trying to kill you. And after beating that bad guy, another bad guy comes along the way. Like for instance, the first arc where they're going against Devimon, and him putting the black gears into the other Digimon to control them to attack the Digidestins. As soon as they beat him, they have to go get the crest on the other island, so they can digivolve their Digimon even further to become stronger, while dealing with Entomon. After they defeat him, then you have Myotismon, who's trying to go to the real world to destroy the 8th Digidestin so he can rule the Digiworld and the human world. After they defeat him, then they go back to the digital world because they spent too much time in the human world, and the digital world time goes by faster there than in the human world, and it is controlled by the Dark Masters. Once they defeat them, they find out who the real villain is out of all the other villains, which is Apocalypse. So the kids battle trial after trial, enemy after enemy. Then when they finally get to him, he takes their crest away, and they basically lose a lot of hope, and they don't think they can defeat him. And this is where I really like Adventure 1. It doesn't matter if you're the strongest, the coolest, the smartest, the fastest. All it matters is you being yourself, you and your Digimon partner, and being happy and believing in them and believing in yourself. Because once they had the crest taken away from them, they realize they don't need the crest to, like Tai, for instance. He don't need the crest of courage to show that he's courageous. Sora don't need the crest of love to know that she's, like, loving and caring. And that the crest was inside of them the whole time. And with that, they're able to evolve and beat Apocalypse and save the world. And once they do that, they have to go back, the Digimon have to go back to the digital world, and the humans have to go back to the human world. And it is such a kind of like a bittersweet moment. Like it's actually, I remember it making me really sad as a kid, and even made me as sad as an adult seeing them leave the Digimon behind. Even though I give this series much praise, there is some things that I don't like about it. And the main thing that I don't like about it, honestly, is the dub. Not that it's bad, but from the late 90s to early 2000s, it's a kind of a product of its time, as they say. Like, the dialogue to me is really, really bad, and I know it's like cheesy and jokey, but after watching the original in subs, like, it makes the more emotional moments way more emotional. And yeah, people complain that the subs are quiet, but for me, I like that quietness. It adds more of a sense of dread, where like, and what I mean by the sense of dread, it's more like you have to adapt to this environment, this very dangerous environment that these kids are in. And not only that, but they have to get along with each other while they also bump heads. So it's like kind of like a realistic situation if you put like 8 people in a strange area, how they adapt to it. There's something about that I really like. But my goodness, the dubs do not shut up. Like, they just don't shut up. Like, I remember one part where the Machine Dramon's like really evil and they finally beat him, and War Greymon's like, take a bath. Or they're like, take a bath, Fleabag, or your breath stinks. Or like when Myotismon hit Birdramon, oh, I got bad heartburn from that. It's like, can you shut up? Can you shut up? And honestly, sometimes the dubs make it seem like a complete different story altogether. I guess to basically sum it up, the dialogue's pretty bad, the jokes won't shut up, the people won't be quiet. I mean, they are constantly talking either, and I know they talk about food a lot in the Japanese, but my gosh, do they talk about food so much and always make a quirky joke when there's something serious going on. And it just, sometimes it gets a little bit overbearing. But other than that, I still love this series a lot. It's on my #1 rank on the chart that you'll see here. And let's move on to the next one. 4 years later, the digital world is being attacked by the Digimon Emperor. He's enslaving Digimon with dark rings and building these control spires to negate Digivolution. The new Digidestined gets a new Digidevice known as D3. Not only does this allow them to transfer the digital world through the computer, but with it they can use these Digi-Eggs so that their Digimon can armor Digivolve. Then they battle the Digimon Emperor. After he converts to a good guy, it turns out that he is also a Digidestined. And that's what I think was really cool about this series. I thought it was cool having a Digidestin or another child with a Digivice to be a villain. But sadly for me personally, this is when the series kind of goes downhill after Ken joins the team. Because after that, then they try to go and destroy the spiral towers that he's created to restore the digital world and to rebuild it. And then the lady, who's actually not a lady, is actually a Digimon or a Kinnimon, she can turn the spirals into Digimon, which gives me one of my favorite Digimons in the series. One of them, Black War Greymon. I think he's really cool. And she's also working with Mummymon. And this is where the series kind of goes like back and forth of them trying to stop them, and then they're trying to stop the kids, and so on. And Black War Greymon trying to destroy the Digistones, or Destiny Stones, I don't know, I think he's trying to like bring Azulungmon out so we can fight him and defeat him. And then like Christmas comes around, and then the spirals are appearing in the human world, and they're flying around in Dramon, destroying them. And it's just, I don't know, just kind of gets kind of weird. And then those two Digimon end up kidnapping kids for this guy, Yukio. I don't know if I pronounced that right or not. And because he dreams of going to the digital world. And then he also implanted a dark spore into Ken and made him evil. And I don't know, it just gets weird. And then there's like the Black Ocean. And then Kairi gets whisked away and she can see it. And then they go to like a dream world where they fight Okawa. And then they learn that he's being controlled by Myotismon. And then he comes back as a Mallow Myotismon. And then they, with all the help of the Digidestins and all the kids around the world, they defeat him. And then Okawa sacrifices himself to rebuild the digital world. And then like it does like a major time skip, and everyone has like kids and married. And it just kind of gets kind of weird. But nonetheless, I still like the series. I love the battles. I love the final boss. It is kind of emotional, and it's sad when the guy dies. And it's great to see, the power of your being yourself and being true to yourself and pure is what conquers evil. And then it is neat seeing Ken being the bad guy, and then him creating the Chimeramon, and the battle with Black War Greymon, and the Digivolutions, and the Armor Evolutions, and all that stuff. I think, it's really, really neat. It does have some good parts to it. But like I said, the negative parts is that after the Ken arc, it kind of just bounces around. At certain points, I was just like, what the heck is going on here? Like, is this just nothing? Is just like, oh, let's go to this area and battle these people again and lose, and then battle them again here, then battle them again here, with nothing really happening. And another thing that ruins it for me once again, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think the dub in this one's even worse than the Venture 1. Or at least they're pretty close. And I kind of wish I saw the sub of this, or I'd like to see how it was done originally. And then again, like, they don't shut up. They're constantly talking, constantly making lame jokes, constantly talking about food, constantly making the smart remarks, constantly doing this when something serious has happened. And it, again, like Series 1, it does get overwhelming. But one scene in particular that stands out to me, well, a couple of them actually, is one with, like, the kid named Cody. Like, there's a part where they're trying to go to the digital world, and he's like, I'm just paraphrasing here. Like when we go to the digital world and, by the time my grandma finishes half the hot dog and goes on to the coleslaw, they're going to remember, like, what the heck, where them kids at? I mean, he says something, like, so dumb along those lines. And I could look up the real thing or show the clip, but I don't want to do that. I'm lazy. And then, like, another thing that bothered me, too, was when Kairi goes to the Dark Ocean, and she's not, this ain't the first time something weird's happened to her where she's been transported and all this other stuff. I mean, it happens in Adventure 1 when she's a kid. And in the dub in particular, when she's there, instead of being like, whoa, what is this place, or what's going on, she's like, I'm hungry, I hope there's a hot dog stand, I want a hot dog. And it's like, will you shut up? But overall, I would rank it as a good series. Like, you gotta watch it. I mean, it's still good in its own right. I mean, other people might like this, and I'm not saying if you like it, there's nothing bad with that. But for me personally, it's nothing like too good, especially what Adventure 1 is set up. But it's still good in its own little way, and so I'd rank it as good. On to the next one. Up next is Digimon Tamers. Digimon Tamers is about a boy named Takato. He's a fan of the Digimon card game, which I thought that was a pretty cool thing in the show when I watched as a kid, because I remember having the Digimon cards. I never knew how to play them, but seeing them in the show, which I wish they did more with in the show, but otherwise it was still neat to see that they had the card game on the show. Anyways, Takato finds a blue card and he uses it on like this card reading device, and it turns into a Digivice. He also draws his own Digimon and creates his own Digimon on a piece of paper, which comes to life when it gets scanned as well, which is Guilmon. Later, he meets a boy named Henry and a girl named Rika, and they have like their own Digimon, and they're basically going around fighting the Digimon that are loose in the world, while this like government-ran corporation called Hypnos is like capturing the Digimon and sending them back to the digital world. And I know Digimon Tamers is probably like the most popular in the series with the fan base, but it's this right here is what makes me not like this series as much. I mean, I still love it, don't get me wrong. I think it's still a good series, but I don't like it because it seems like a lot of filler. Like a lot of stuff doesn't really amount to anything. For a while at least, and then the Tamers end up joining with the Hypnos and they battle the Devas, which have invaded the real world, and they took Calamon and they took him back to the digital world. You're at the halfway mark at this point. So it kind of takes a little bit over half of the series to kind of get to where it needs to be going. And that's what I kind of didn't like too much about it. Kind of similar with Adventure 2. But then it gets good when you go to the digital world, and then like there's another Digimon named Itmon who's like kind of a troublemaker and just a little brat, and then he ends up becoming like Beelzemon, a really strong Digimon, and he ends up killing one of the Digidestin's Digimon, and it gets like kind of dark, and it really messes up with that girl. Once he gets the ball rolling, it gets pretty good. And then they battle the Devas, and it turns out they were protecting themselves from the humans because they created like this D-Reaper, which is like a cleaning program that deletes all the Digimon. So then they end up going back to the real world, and then this is when it gets kind of weird, because that little Jerry girl, I remember when I was a kid, that scared the crap out of me, the way she looked and the way she was acting. And then she ends up getting like kidnapped by the D-Reaper, and he ends up like making her replay her mother's death over and over to feed off her negative energy. And then like Beelzemon, who killed her Digimon, has to rescue her. Anyways, they defeat it, rescue Jerry, and then their Digimon have to go back to the digital world, and at the end, Takato ends up finding a portal that goes back to the digital world through the area that he hid Guilmon in. Again, I'm doing basic synopsis of these series because I'm mainly just trying to refresh your memory and then tell you what I experienced and what I felt and thought going through the series. Now, this series, I liked it. It's very good, but it's kind of boring and it feels like a lot of filler. Some episodes do, but when it starts getting good, it gets really good. But the problem with that is it doesn't really start getting good till halfway near the series. But other than that, it was really good. I loved how the Digimon fused together with their partners. I thought that was amazing. The dark stuff gets really dark and heavy, and it's really cool. Beelzemon's a really good villain. Then he ends up turning good. And you know, the stuff with Jerry is kind of messed up, but it's really good. And then the Devas is kind of like a misunderstanding, and then they end up like trying to help with the Digi-Sovereigns, trying to attack the kids, and they end up working things out to work together. Then like the adults have to help them because that's some of the programs they worked on. But it's just getting to that point takes a while, and that's what kind of makes me not like the series. Like if you were to watch it, you can skip a little bit of the beginning once you get the characters established, and then be just fine. And it does also seem like they screw around a little bit in the digital world compared to the other ones. Well, at least Adventure 1. And thank goodness they got the dialogue really good. Like, I mean, this was the first series that I didn't want to stab a pencil through my ear because the dialogue was actually really good. It wasn't over-the-top goofiness. It wasn't, let's talk the whole time and not shut up. I mean, they do talk a lot, but it isn't unbearable. And it isn't, like, terrible one-liners and stuff. I mean, it is there, but not near as much as Adventure 1 and Adventure 2. So overall, I really enjoyed this series. It's, once it gets dark, it gets really dark, and I would rank it as it was very good. Next is Digimon Frontier, but this is about, you have a young boy, Takuya, who gets a weird message on his phone one day, and it tells him to go to this train station. Him and a bunch of other kids have been summoned. And there, he gets on a train and he goes to the digital world. When he's at the digital world, he has to find these Digi-Spirits to help him fight other Digimon and to restore the digital world. And he does this with 5 other kids, and they find these legendary Digimon spirits. And when I was a kid, I did not like this series at all because of they got rid of the Digimon. But as an adult now, it really doesn't bother me. In fact, I think it's actually a pretty neat concept. So these kids can spirit evolve, and they fight these other 5 legendary warriors who serve Cherubimon. Because Cherubimon is the enemy at this point, and he's trying to destroy the digital world and take over it. Also, there's another kid named Koichi who is working with Cherubimon, and it turns out to be Koji's twin brother. They end up helping him like they did with Ken on Digimon Adventure 2, and he joins their team. And it turns out Cherubimon was once good, and he ruled the digital world with Ophanimon and Seraphimon. And it was Ophanimon that got the kids there, that gave them the message to go there in the beginning, to basically free Seraphimon when the war broke out with Cherubimon, because she was when he messaged him on the phone, I meant to say. But anyways, after defeating Cherubimon, they learn of Lucimon, who is sealed within a digital world, and then 2 royal knights going around destroys the world and collects the data core to give it to Lucimon so he can reawaken. So they defeat the Royal Knights, and then Lucimon like basically beats him up. Then he opens a portal to the real world, and then while he goes to the real world, the spirits of the Digidestins combine, and they go after him. And then they destroy Lucimon, and they restore the data and fix the digital world, and then they return to the real world. And then like the kid Koichi like ends up getting hurt, but they end up helping him out, and they pretty much get on with their lives, and that's how it ends. I know this Digimon series is hated, but for me personally, I really loved this one a lot. Now, I like it because it does bring back a sense of urgency with like the feeling and being in the digital world, kind of like how Adventure 1 did. It gives you that sort of sense of, it kept me on edge, kind of like how Season 1 did. I mean, I know I said dread in the beginning of this because I'm recording this at a different time, but I meant to say like it just keeps you on suspense, keeps you like wondering what's going to happen next with the villains and how they're going to beat them and stuff. Like, I don't know, I really liked it a lot. Now, I kind of didn't like them getting rid of the Digimon, but like after a few episodes, I kind of got over that real quick. But I will say the thing that I didn't like, kind of like I have with Adventure 2 and Tamers, but like after they beat Cherubimon, it seems like it kind of slows down. Like, for instance, when they battle the Royal Knights are super powerful, and they don't need like 10 episodes of them getting their butts kicked. Like, they could have just summoned that all up in a few episodes, I felt like. Like, you can just literally skip until Lucimon awakens and starts attacking them, because it kind of just seems like filler until that point. However, one thing I will say is neat that they did was they went back to previous areas which the Royal Knights destroyed. And I really like that just on TV wise, because you always watch a show and they're like, oh, we'll come back, we'll see you later, and you never see those people ever again. But here they actually went back to the places that they went in the beginning of this season. But that's not necessarily a thing about Digimon, that's just about TV show pet peeves that I have. Overall, I like this season a whole lot. I absolutely loved it. Like, there is urgency. They get there. They gotta fight these enemies. The enemies, you learn more about the enemies. Yeah, they fight them quite a bit, but then it adds more of the enemies, and then it's kind of like an RPG. Like, first you battle them, you kind of fill them out, then you get stronger, then you battle them, then you win, then you go to the next enemy. And I kind of like the way that was done. Kind of like how Adventure 1 was. And I like the characters a lot. So I was really surprised. Like, this went from my most hated series from my childhood to being one of my favorites. On to Digimon Data Squad. Now, I know it's Digimon Savers, I believe, but I've always grown up with it being Digimon Data Squad. Digimon Data Squad starts with this digigroup called Digital Accident Tactics Squad, also known as DATS. And it's basically like the government taking Digimon that has came to the real world and they're sending them back to the digital world. Basically kind of like Hypno. And anyways, while they're trying to get this one Digimon, Agumon, that slipped over, ends up meeting this boy named Marcus Damon. And Marcus Damon like beats it up, and he gets beat up too. And they end up becoming like partners. And then they end up joining DATS. And then they battle Digimon and send them back to the digital world, kind of like Digimon Tamers at this point. And then they end up going to the digital world where they meet Marukimon, and there's a child with him. And the kid thinks he's a Digimon. And this kid apparently got lost in the digital world because his parents worked on some equipment, and he went through the portal and he went to the digital world. So they made an expedition to go after him, and then there was like a crazy scientist that went with them, and he was like, we need to destroy these creatures because for the sake of mankind. And then he ends up going back and attacking them years later when the little boy ends up growing a little bit older, and because he's been raised by Frigimon, he thinks Frigimon is his mom, and Frigimon is getting killed in that incident. And also Marcus's dad was part of that group, and his dad's gone missing and has been missing since Marcus was a little kid. Anyways, the crazy government guy, Kurata, he ends up getting the government support so that he can defeat all the Digimon species, claiming that they're a threat to mankind. And he uses Belphemon, and he basically like possesses it, and he tries to kill him that way, but Marcus ends up defeating them, and then he ends up setting off a bomb to make the digital world merge with the human world. And while there's another Digimon named Bancholeomon, he prevents them from morphing together. So Marcus goes to the digital world from the human world, and there he meets King Drazel, who like took possession of his dad's body, and his dad's body's soul is trapped within Bancholeomon. Well, is with Bancholeomon. King Drazel wants to delete the human world because he is the protector of the digital world, and he says they both can't coexist. And they defeat King Drazel, and then Spencer gets his body back, and his soul from Bancholeomon returns to his body, and then everything's back to normal, and then Marcus goes over to the digital world to keep peace over there. And I think it implies that he stays over there. Now, this series I will rate as amazing. I think it's really good, and I think it's really well done. And it's actually pretty mature. Like, it's like the teenage version of Digimon. And I really liked it all the way through. And I didn't like the characters as much in the beginning, but after a while I kind of got used to them, even though Marcus is a little bit too much. Now, the things I didn't like is kind of like in the beginning, like Digimon Tamers, where they battle the Digimon of the day, and it takes a little bit while to get the story going. but also like Digimon Tamers when it does get going, which I think this does better than Digimon Tamers. Like, because once this gets going, it was just all the way through. Like, Digimon Tamers slowed down, then got good, then slowed down, then got good, then dark, then got, stuff like that. Another thing I didn't like was Marcus. Now, I get the first initial punch, it makes his hand glow so he can the Digichart so he can evolve his Digimon. I don't know, it's fine at first, but when you see him like punching mega levels and all this other stuff and it's actually inflicting damage, it's kind of ridiculous. Like Digimon Frontier, it's fine because they're Digimon, but the other Digimons, if Takato were to like punch, but say War Growlmon, and sure for the other Digimon series, like you can't just attack Digimon, you're just not strong enough. It'd be like me fighting a grizzly bear and beating him up with my bare fist. And that's like at a rookie level. Like at one point, like Marcus almost kills a Digimon like the Beelmon. He beats Beelmon to death, almost. It's pretty comical just because it's kind of ridiculous seeing him beat up a Digimon, but at the same time it's like, come on, this couldn't be happening. And that's the thing that I didn't like. And then his character personality is a little bit too much at times. It's like, hey, we need to think through. I'm going to punch it. We need to do this. I'm going to punch it. I'm going to punch it. I'm going to punch it. It's like, okay, Marcus, we got to actually strategize here, not just punch stuff. I'm sorry you got the magical fist of justice here. And like Agumon losing to him was kind of ridiculous. I mean, like Agumon has claws. He can literally rip you to shreds and breathe fire in your face. Like, come on now, that's kind of getting ridiculous. But I mean, it isn't bad. It's still enjoyable. And I think I forgot to mention this about the Frontier, but Frontier's dialogue was really good, just like Tamers. But this dialogue is actually really good too, and I think it's better than Frontier and Tamers. Yeah, there is the comical moments like in every Digimon thing, but I think they got the dialogue like good. I'm not glad the dialogue in the first two are just so awful to me personally. Nonetheless, however, I enjoyed the series, and I've enjoyed every single one of them so far, and now on to the final one, Fusion. Now, I'll just be honest, Digimon Fusion is probably my least favorite of the series. I still enjoyed it nonetheless, yet I can see why the fan base feels the way it does towards it, but this is just my opinion on Digimon Fusion. Before I jump into the synopsis, I'm just going to say that there is 3 seasons to Digimon Fusion, and honestly, it's almost double the other series in episode-wise. Anyways, a boy named Mikey Kudo, who's basically Mr. Perfect, he hears a voice saying it's from Shoutmon, who's injured, and he goes over to help him, and he ends up getting a fusion loader. So him and his friends, Angie and Jeremy, end up going to the digital world. And there, they are thrown straight into battle because the digital world is at war with the Bargra army, who's tearing stuff up to get the 108 Crow crowns. And if you collect all the crowns, you become king of the digital world. And then there's other humans with digiloaders, fusion loaders, and like they're both kind of mysterious in the beginning, but they really aren't that much once you get to actually know them. And how it works is that with the fusion loader, they can fuse Digimon. Kind of like it, but I kind of don't. I don't like it because it throws away the levels that I've known all through, my life and through Digimon, the Digimon series. And they go into like a morphing Power Rangers mode, which is fine and is cool at first, but then it's just like Shoutmon times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and all that and nonsense. So basically what it boils down to for season 1 is that they go to one digital zone, conquer it, get the code crown, and then they go to the next one. And it's basically that for most of the episodes. And then like the girl Nene ends up as being like working for Axe Nightmon, who's evil, and he's like promised her, if you give me the code crowns, I can help you find your brother. But you don't really know that too much until season 2. And then there's Christopher. Freaking Christopher, like I don't really know how to describe this dude. Like he's evil, he's good, he's evil, he's good, he's evil, he's good, and then he goes through all these character jumps, and it's just like, okay, dude, you need to pick a side. Like, come on now, you're either with us or against us. And it's like that till almost near the end of season 2, kind of, with him. So I didn't really like Christopher that much. Anyways, Bargamon steals their code crowns, and they end up going back to the human world, and then Mikey basically just ditches his friends. They're not even Digidestined, so there really is no reason for them to be there. I thought at least the little girl would get like Koopmon or something like that, but they really don't. So he basically leaves them there, and then he goes back to the digital world, and since time flows differently in the digital world, it's like a year's pass in the digital world, and the Bargra armor is just taken over. And this is on season 2 at this point. And it's the same premise. Go from one emperor's kingdom to the next kingdom to the next kingdom until you get to the Bargra guy. And it turns out that the Axe Nightmon ditches Nene for her little brother, and he's basically using him to feed off his negative energy to like get the fragments of the Dark Stone, which is like D5. And then they end up like saving Ewan, and then they end up battling the Bargra guy. And then he comes to like the human world, or maybe before he comes to the human world, his Axe Nightmon betrays him because they're brothers. And then they go to the human world and they defeat him. And I mean, that's pretty much it. Like, this Digimon series, it plays it like, it doesn't really do anything that stands out, but it doesn't do anything that it's already established in a good way. It just basically plays it safe. It's just, battle this guy, go to the next one. And then there's like season 3, and it's not even really about Mikey and his gang. It's about this new guy, Tagiru. I don't even know how you say his name. And he goes, because like apparently there's like this Quartzmon zone or whatever. It's called the Digiquartz. And there's like Digimon hunters, and they're trying to capture Digimon, like feeding off negative energy from the real world. Basically, do like all the Digimon series main characters are there, and they have to fight the Quartzmon. It's like, oh, we have to choose one to surpass the other ones from the different time worlds, and it's the new boy Taguru. I can't even say his name. Like, I thought since, this is mainly about Mikey, I thought it'd be like, oh, he surpasses the other Digimons, because, Shoutmon could basically fuse with every Digimon in that universe to be like this Mega Digimon. But no, it's this new kid that doesn't even become established till season 3. Like, Christopher and Nene, their characters, which I did like near the end of season 2, like, they're just completely just garbage now. And now I know I'm kind of coming off negative, but I really don't know what to say much about this series. Now, I did enjoy it. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy it. I did like it. But it felt like one of those series that you can just kind of turn your brain off and have it playing in the background and still understand what goes on. And to me personally, I felt like the series was a lot longer than what it should have been. And season 3, I think they said that was mainly just filler till they got the new season out. It kind of feels that way, but I don't know if that's correct or not. Now, there really isn't that many moments that stand out to me. Now, I haven't seen the Digimon series in years, but rewatching it, I knew moments that were standing out, like Kin being good, and when Agumon first turns into War Greymon, and like Matt and Tai fighting, Beelzemon killing Leomon, with Takato and his Digimon fusing, and when the kids from the 4th series is getting beat up by Lucymon. Like, these were just things that, like, or even the 5th series when Pancho Leomon keeps the worlds from morphing together. Like, them series, like, I remember those when I was watching this, because it came back to me, and I was like, or also, like, from Adventure 2 when that guy sacrificed himself for the digital world. Like, I haven't seen these in so long, but I knew these things were coming up and when they were. But this series, the only thing that really stands out to me was Tacticmon when they battle him in the human world, Lopmon getting killed, turning into the legendary Whitemon. And on season 3, I mean, it was kind of like fan servicey to see all the Digidestineds from the main series, but that didn't really stand out to me too much because it just kind of felt weird. But what really stood out in season 3 was when the old man turned out to be Balgramon. But like, them were the only moments that really kind of stand out to me. The rest of it just kind of mixed all together, because it was just battle this guy, get this code crown, go to the next one. Oh, we're back to the human world. Now we're back to there, and he split the kingdoms up to 7 with his dark generals. Let's beat them up and then go beat Bagra. And then, like I said, then season 3 kind of just played it safe. Like, it was just, you really didn't need to watch every episode to get what was going on. Honestly, my personal opinion, season 3 kind of felt like Dragon Ball Z Heroes, or Dragon Ball Heroes, where it has like Goku Super Saiyan God fighting with Goku Super Saiyan 4, if anyone's seen that. Now, I know this might come off as negative for Fusion, which I'm not really trying to do. This is just my opinion and how I felt watching it, but I still liked it. Like, there were times that I really did like it, like when they were fighting the Aqua guy, and he had that little girl that was actually like a robot or something, and the Liquids was controlling it. And, I mean, I did like the characters. I did like Angie. I did like Jeremy. And I did like Nene. Christopher, not too much, just because he kept jumping around and couldn't make up his mind on what character development he wanted to go through. And then season 3 kind of ruins him and Nene. And Angie and Jeremy to an extent. Honestly, season 3 kind of ruins Mikey. Like, season 3 could have just been its own with Taguri, whatever you say his name. Because a lot of times Mikey's like, oh, I knew this was going to happen, but I'm not allowed to interfere because I'm too good. And I got the Digimon King with me. And it's like, okay, then why are you even here? I also like, Beelzemon, Mervamon, the airplane Digimon that Nene has. Like, I don't know, I mean, for me, it's like, this series was just good. Like, it was just good. I didn't think it was awful. I didn't think it was bad. But I didn't think it was great. But I still had a good time watching it. I did enjoy it. I mean, like I said, it just, had the basic formula and just played it safe. Like, when they go to the Digimon world, yeah, they eat a little bit, but, like, in the beginning, but then they don't really have to, like, get food, water, and shelter, and it's not really as... Things don't seem to be as urgent or be much on the line as much as it did, like, in Tamers, Savers, Adventurers, and Frontier. It was just, we're going here, beating this guy up, going to the next one, finding a strategy to beat them, and going to the next one. Watching Fusion, though, did kind of get me burnt out, and I got a little bored at certain parts, because, I mean, you can just watch the first 5 episodes, or first few episodes of Season 1, and then the last episodes of that season, and then jump straight into Season 2. Like, to me, it felt like this did not need to be as long as it was. But I did like the fights, I did like the animation. I thought the animation was beautiful. I thought the Digimon fusion was fine. I thought it was a neat little thing. But overall, I would rank this as just good. So basically, to sum it all up, Digimon Adventure 1 I loved. Digimon Frontier I loved. Digimon Data Squad I thought was amazing. And I thought Digimon Tamers was very good. Now Digimon Adventure 2, I think it's good, but the dialogue kind of kills it for me, and Fusion just plays it too safe in my book, but it's still good nonetheless. Anyways, that's my ranking of the series. Let me know what yours is in the comments below and which one you like, and why do you like Digimon is what I also like to know. Are you excited for Digimon Survive? For me, it's definitely going to be a day one purchase, and it's been my most anticipated game for a while now, ever since I've learned about it back in 2018. And for me personally, I'm hoping this will be my favorite Digimon game. Anyways, I really do mean this, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart if you made it this far in the video, if you watched it, or even if you skipped it to the summary, that's fine too. I just really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to watch this video. And no matter who you are or where you're from, if you're around the world watching this even, I hope you have a fantastic day or night. You got this. I believe in you. You can do anything. Because you're Digidestined. And until next time.